In this video, we're going to be speaking about something that is hugely important and is definitely not spoken about enough in the PCOS community. And if you are struggling with a symptom, then you are absolutely not alone. It is far more common than you might think. We're going to be talking about the link between PCOS and depression. My name's Tara and I'm the founder of PCOS Diet Support, and I talk a lot about PCOS and what it means for us. Now, when I was first diagnosed with PCOS 10 years ago, one of the symptoms that I struggled with the most at the time was depression. I had an incredibly low mood. I could not find any joy in the things that I usually found joy in. I wanted to sleep all the time. And that and my infertility at the time were my biggest concerns. And those two symptoms are really what got me to my GP and got me seen and ultimately diagnosed with PCOS. And over the last 9 years of working with women with PCOS and walking a journey with a lot of women with PCOS, one of the symptoms that comes up over and over and over again is depression. But because of the nature of depression, we don't feel like we are able to speak about it. We often don't feel like we are able to get help for our depression. And this is something that we really need to talk more about and really raise awareness about, because we do not need to struggle in silence with the symptoms. There absolutely are things that we can do, and that is what we're going to be speaking about in this video. Now, you might be surprised to find just how many women struggle with depression and how many women with PCOS struggle with depression. So if we look at the general population, okay, this is these statistics come from the US. If we look at the general population, what you will find is that about 10% of people, or 10% of the population who have depression, 10% of women will have depression, okay? Then let's compare this to women with PCOS. About 46% of women with PCOS struggle with depression. That is nearly half of us, okay, struggle with depression. Now, when we think about PCOS, we think about weight gain, we think about infertility, we think about acne. Depression is not one of the symptoms that seems to come up. But in fact, more of us probably struggle with depression than a lot of the other symptoms. So it is definitely something that we need to be having a conversation about. And one of the problems with depression is that because we lack this drive, because we just don't see the point of any of it when we have depression, we struggle to take the steps that we need to take to manage our PCOS. So the thing is that doctors are not really sure what the link is between PCOS and depression. So there are some thoughts in that a lot of the symptoms of PCOS make us more at risk of depression. Things like insulin resistance has been known to have a higher incidence of depression with insulin resistance. PCOS is an endocrine disorder. Our hormones are affected. So that hormonal imbalance that is brought about by PCOS may make us more susceptible to depression. So there's all of those physiological factors. But what we also need to consider is that living with PCOS is not easy and it is not fun. And it has a massive impact on our self-esteem and our own self-belief, our self-image. Things like the hair where we don't want it, the low sex drive, the low self-esteem, the weight, it all impacts on how we perceive ourselves. And that, the psychological impact of living with PCOS, can also impact on depression and mood. And research shows that women with PCOS tend to have a lower quality of life or satisfaction than women without PCOS. So just the very virtue of the fact that we have PCOS makes us more prone to depression. And in fact, there was a case study done on a woman who was repeatedly admitted to a psychiatric hospital for major depressive episodes. And she was not responding to treatments. And the doctors couldn't work out why. They were doing everything that they knew to do to treat this woman's depression. And it just she wasn't finding any relief. She wasn't getting better. And she happened to also be diagnosed with PCOS. And when her PCOS was treated, then there was an improvement in her depression once her PCOS symptoms were addressed first. So the bottom line is that doctors don't know why. But the reality is that there is this link between PCOS and depression. And you do not need to live in silence. You do not need to struggle with the symptoms. There are some things that you can do to help with your symptom of depression, which is what we're going to be talking about now. Firstly, speak to your doctor. If you are struggling with depression, if you are feeling really low mood that is for an extended period of time, if you have lost the joy in the things that you normally find joy in, if you kind of your appetite has suddenly disappeared, or you feel tired all the time, but you're struggling with insomnia, those are all some of the symptoms of depression. And if this is ringing true to you, then please go and see your doctor, okay? There are things that can be prescribed to help you lift your mood, to help balance some of those hormones and the neurotransmitters that can help to alleviate some of the depression. Okay, so please do go and speak to your doctor. Do not feel like there is a stigma or any shame to this. Get the help that you need. That is your first starting point. Then, support is also so important. To know that there is a whole community. 50% of us are feeling exactly what you are feeling, are going through the things that you are going through. And yes, all of our experience is slightly different, but it is so helpful when you know that there are other women out there who get it, who know what it's like not only to have PCOS, but to struggle with a lot of the low mood. And that is where, I work with a community of women in my PCOS Foodies membership. And one of the most powerful things about being part of this membership program, apart from the meal plans and the resources, is really just this community of women who get it, who you can go to and say, I've had a really, really bad day. This is my experience. And to know that there are other women out there who get it. So I know that women with PCOS, you may not know them in your immediate circle, but there is a community of women out there. But there are lots of free groups. There's PCOS Foodies. There are places where you can get the support that you need. Then going on to some of the more practical elements. And again, if you are struggling with mood, doing these things, and you need motivation to do some of these things. So that's why going to speak to your doctor first and getting on medication is a really good place to start. But we're going to take a multi-pronged approach to this. So the research shows that doing some resistance training can be really helpful for women with PCOS. It helps in a number of ways. Firstly, it will help to make you more sensitive to insulin, which will improve a lot of your PCOS symptoms in general. And the resistance training as well, research has shown that it can help to improve sex drive or libido in women with PCOS. Women with PCOS are prone to having low sex drive. Depression can totally eliminate your sex drive too. So that might be a helpful form of exercise if you're struggling with depression and sex drive. And it's also been shown to help alleviate some of the mood symptoms that are associated with PCOS. So resistance training can be really helpful. If you feel like you are able to do it, please do some or try to do some. And the last thing we're going to be speaking about is vitamin D. Vitamin D, research shows that 85% of women with PCOS are deficient in vitamin D. I mean, that's a massive, massive statistic. And so I really believe that we should all be taking a vitamin D. Please do speak to your doctor if you are concerned about the current dose. You can have a blood test to see what level of deficiency you have, and your doctor will be able to prescribe just the right dose of vitamin D. But we should all be taking a vitamin D supplement. Vitamin D has been shown to help with insulin resistance. There is a link between vitamin D deficiency and infertility. So if you're struggling with fertility, you need to be taking a vitamin D supplement. And specifically related to this video, vitamin D can be really helpful in alleviating some of the symptoms of depression that are associated with PCOS. So those are just some of the things that we can do. You are a unique individual and you need to find what works for you. So you can kind of add these thoughts to your toolbox of the things that you can do to help with depression. But the point that I want to emphasize over and over and over again is that this is something that is definitely not spoken about enough, and that you do not need to suffer in silence. I would really love to raise awareness about the link between PCOS and depression, and I'd really like to just share our stories of living with depression and PCOS. So if this is a symptom that you are struggling with, and if you feel able to, I would love for you to give me a thumbs up or to leave me a comment below and let me know about your story and your experience of living with vitamin D, of living with PCOS and depression.